Into the racks every week, keep craving that rush that you get when you flip to the next page. Life is better when you're living between Wednesdays. Yes, say, got a massive...
What's up, folks? I'm your host, Konrad, on Wednesday Night Reviews, and I'm joined today by Brent, Phil, and Michelle, and they're going to talk about their new book, which is on Kickstarter now. So, folks, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So for the folks out there in YouTube land, because I don't often get to interview three people at the same time, I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. My first question, as always, who are you fine folks? So we'll start, I guess we'll go counterclockwise first. So Brent, you're on my screen first. So who is Brent Fisher?
Hello, my name's Brent Fisher. My pronouns are they, them. And I would love to kind of introduce you to me. How do I start it? I'm a comic writer first and foremost, followed by an editor and storyteller. I think my biggest calling that I've kind of fallen into is being able to just befriend new people and learn new things. And the illustrated stories have been the process for which I've been able to accomplish that.
Nice. I like it. And Phil?
Hi, everybody. I'm Phil. Pronoun she, her. I write and I draw. You probably know me best for the comic Commander Rao, which, if you look really closely at the back of Konrad's wall there, it's right there. Thank you for hanging it up. Yeah, and I'm I also really like to draw sword ladies, which will come in handy for what we're about to talk about in this little interview.
Absolutely. I do want to point out, to my pride, I got Commander Rao there from Kickstarter before Fel was picked up by Scout Comics, which is super cool. So fancy me.
OG.
Oh, yeah. And Michelle.
Now, I also met Fel before she was famous. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that it's really important. Everybody knows that. Hi, Michelle. I'd probably say editor first at this point. Editor, writer, poet, sad person, big sad boy energy. I studied at the Fellhound School of making gay people cry with my sad comic stories. I started working in comics on Color of Always, which was our, I guess you would call that the freshman effort of our anthologies. And that was my first story I wrote, my first, I guess, deep dive into comic production and editing. And, I kind of do it all. I have many skills like Xena Warrior Princess when it comes to making comics, budgets and production and following the rules and keeping the kids in line and making cool books. And I'm really excited about the book we're working on now.
I dig it. Then you know what, to jump right into it, because I think you might be the perfect person to lead off on that. We are obviously here to talk about your collectively kickstarted comic, or being kickstarted comic, Sharp Wit and the Company of Women, which, as you mentioned, Michelle, is a anthology.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a bit about it?
Well, it is, I'll say some pretty on the nose words, and then Brent will say the flowery thing after. It's about sword girls, women with weapons. We're all into that, I think, on some level. I don't know if there's anybody who would not really be into, women with weapons. I think it's a universal language. And really excited about it. We have some really cool weapons happening, some cool stories. I'm sure Brent is absolutely dying, wanting to say something really deep and meaningful. And I just, I want, women to murder me with their weapons. Brent, take it away.
Step on us, ladies and stories. Slice us up, kill us. But no, I want to make also for the record, I'll always mention this whenever, since I don't have the opportunity to have Fel around at the same time like this. Fel gave me my chance really to start doing this, and I'm probably here somewhat because of Fel. So just want to put that out there. But no, sharp wit. Yeah, sword ladies. We wanted to follow up on our first volume, which was The Color of Always, which was kind of a unique vision of just preserving queer stories in conceptualizations of love, and then but also using it as a way of sharing it with diverse audiences. Because I think one of the larger issues we're dealing with right now is books are getting ripped off of shelves. That's a very visceral thing. There's a larger, obviously more sinister effort to just negate our existence and the existence of LGBT people in general. And the only way to combat that is to maintain stories, to keep people out there in the cultural lexicon of our own shared experiences. And while it's by and for LGBT creators, which was, by the way, a stipulation of working with us, is you have to identify as part of the community. It's also meant to reach people who necessarily may not be able to encounter an LGBTQ person safely, or maybe there's an LGBT person who can come out, and this is a way for them to be part of the community clandestinely until they're in a situation where they either evolve their identity to where they're comfortable, or they can actually come out to people that they care about. And that's kind of what always drove me to do these, is to elevate these voices on both sides of the equation, as well as educate. And after the success of Color of Always, we thought sword ladies would be a great shared medium, because what Michelle said, it's everyone loves a story of this kind of badass, empowered, feminine warrior-esque figure. And when we're dealing in a what's effectively in the removal of rights and autonomy of women globally in different ways and in different societies, we need to inject and fight back in our own ways more stories into, again, public discourse. We can only control our own 5 feet of space and our own, efficaciousness of what we're trying to do. This is it. This is where I'm planting my flag, and this is where we want to do these things, and this is where the audiences want to reach. That's the big, flowery, long $10 word explanation. But at the end of the day, we also just wanted to have a lot of fun and invite people to write stories about cool, badass ladies. And different permutations of strength as well. Conversations that need to be happening about how women are heroes beyond just the confines of being a badass, because there's different ways of showing how strong you are. And there's different ways of reclaiming your autonomy. And we have to have those conversations. So that's kind of where that stems from as well.
You know what? That's beautiful. I definitely agree, Michelle, with what you mentioned earlier. And Brent, you said it yourself. A very... it's the flowery $10 word version of it, but just for the folks.
I own it. I own it. I do.
You do. No, you know what? You put the disclaimer in there. I love it. For the folks out there who run on, like myself, who I like dumb things down. So basically, as a result of things like books that reflect and show LGBTQ people and lifestyles that are pro empowerment for women, stuff like that being banned, things that are going on like what's going on in Iran or anywhere where basically some sort of governmental control is in some capacity trying to tear women down. That's why you're making this, to be able to say, screw it, this is our spot, here's the stories we want to tell, and to be able to put more context stories out there to say, hey, these are some cool stories that you can check out regarding people like this.
Yeah. It's a full spectrum of reasons why. I mean, you can get crazy flowery like me, but at the end of the day, the single act of defiance of just putting awesome, sexy / powerful / badass / please kill me, ma'am, sword ladies in the book is the biggest fuck you to everyone in the world, because we can and we want to. I mean, that's just as valid.
I think, obviously there's no shortage of women stabbing people in comics, right? But I mean, there's not always women in an empowered way doing it. Absolutely. And there, people talk a lot about, the male gaze and books that are made for men to think that women are hot. And it's sure, we're sword ladies, that's hot. But, I think we're taking it kind of a different level. Their empowerment is the attractive thing, I think, for us. And we're not making this book to we're not making it to appeal to everybody, but it's definitely not made for for a dude bro to be yeah, look at her.
It's not a book full of pin-up women with swords and stuff. It's
with really weird 90s anime.
Yes. Yes. It's interesting that we're talking about this now, actually, even for me personally. because like right now I'm in the middle of audiobooking reading, listening to Elizabeth Moon's Deeds of Paxenarian, which very much so focuses on Paxenarian, who's a woman trying to come into her own. She's born to like a sheep farmer, and she's like, screw it, I want to go be a soldier. So she joins a mercenary league, and she becomes a foot soldier and trains up, becomes a commander. And Elizabeth Moon's way of illustrating that and showing her was like, she's never drawn like, oh, Paxenarian in her bikini. She's like, no, she's a foot soldier. She gets nasty blisters. She deals with mud and blood, and it's just disgusting. But she has this level of femininity about her that is human, and I love it. Given everything that we've just talked about, I wanted to ask you about Sexy Sword Ladies, because we've talked about it quite a bit. Your book, which is up on my wall, Commander Rao, the sequel to it, And We Love You, which is actually my bookshelf right there. How have you come into this project, and can you talk about some of the types of sexy sword ladies we might see in wit and sharp wit in the company of women?
So I helped out Michelle and Brent on the previous anthology, Color of Always. I just had an editor role. I was just kind of helping them out with any kind of behind the scenes stuff, and I am back again in the same role. And yeah, I mean, honestly, when they told me that they were making a Sword Lady anthology, literally my entire art portfolio is Sword Ladies. Like, this is my bread and butter. I pretty much just like begged them to weasel my way in, being like, hey, can I be a part of it? And yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of it, ultimately. And we have a lot of really, really cool stories. Like, it's not like just the sexy sword ladies. It's like, you know, like Brent and Michelle said, it's about the empowerment. It's about sort of, you know, finding your own strength and your own voice in these stories. And, you know, there is obviously a very badass component to it. I mean, it's sword ladies, and they have weapons, and they do cool things. But there's a lot of the stories that we picked, they have a lot of heart in them. They are a lot of it's very character driven, and it's interesting to see how all the creators kind of came to it and put their own voice and their own sort of backgrounds into some of these stories that we had.
Perfect. And I've got to agree, like, I've got here the Kickstarter up, so actually I'm looking at the section called The Stories. I think me personally, obviously, Fel, yours, Starcrossed, is in there. Right under it is Iron Deficiency, which is Michelle's. You've written that one.
Yes.
The one even following that is Dear Genevieve, which, as someone who I like psychological stories, that just sounds super cool. And clearly you both are like loving it. So you know what? We've mentioned this is an anthology. There's a lot of stories about empowering women and women coming into their own or maintaining. I guess one of the important questions is, like, what type of stories will we encounter? So, for instance, Dear Genevieve, whom we've all sort of had a heavy reaction to.
Hey, we're all like, ah.
Yeah, what can someone give a review of what Dear Genevieve is about without spoilers, and then sort of touch on what some of the other stories talk about?
Go for it, Michelle.
I was gonna say, Brent, you want to go for it? I mean,
okay, sure. Psychological, I think, right. I think it takes heavy inspiration. By the way, this is a recurring creator. Really, the author, both the author as well as the artist, even though they belonged on different teams, are returning as their own team to create this story from the preceding volume. And
yeah, they were both in Color of Always, is what Brent is trying to say.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I'm here for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
But I forgot that they weren't on the same team, so I was caught up in that for a second. But yeah, there are Color of Always creators that have come back we assign them to each other. But no, I guess it's kind of like The Others by way of Crimson Peak, without giving away too much. Very surrealism, ghosty type of a motif. And but yeah, it's dark and kind of gritty compared to some of the other ones we've seen. But in terms of thematic, we run from straight up syrupy romance to slapstick antics to just unbridled sapphic content to yeah, we do, and sometimes both in the same story, which is going to be pretty cool. And then really, and I guess there's a diversification of intent, because representation and intersectionality are something we try to be cognizant of. And basically, we need to make sure that all of our stories come from different creators talking about different things, because it's not always about swords. It is not always about, because the nature of being strong can mean a lot of different things. And a lot of the stories deal with identity. A lot of the stories that deal with coming to grips with past mistakes. A lot of the stories deal with the nature of what battle and victory and perseverance is, because it's not always a straight battlefield, and it's not always a weapon of choice, and those kind of allegories are present in some of these stories as well.
I love it. Honestly, the more that the three of you tell me about this, it's like, okay, this is going to be super cool. I personally enjoy anthologies a lot, because you do get a lot of different just from the inherently being different creators, you get a lot of different sort of snippets and stories and cool ideas presented. And with the focus of this one, yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a lot of enjoyment. One question that almost immediately popped into my mind when I started thinking about this and setting up this interview was from the editing perspective. So from the sounds of it, if I'm not mistaken, it's 150 pages, and it's 15 stories ish?
19 stories.
19 stories. Okay. So from an editing perspective, then, how do you go about choosing what stories to include, not to include, and then also the order with which they're presented? To make sort of like a flow, right? Because if you just randomly throw 19 stories at someone, they're going to be like, whoa, okay, what's going on?
Right.
So from an editing perspective on this anthology, how did you funnel it to make sense?
Well,
and anyone feel free to answer.
we got a lot of submissions. And I think we expected a lot, but I think that we got a lot of, and they were good. That's the thing. It wasn't like it was easy. And that's why we planned to have this book with 10 stories.
Oh.
And
yeah. We did.
And that didn't really work. And in terms of, we haven't selected the order of which they're going in the book yet. We're not that far in what we're doing. But that'll be another meeting where we talk about it. But in terms of like how we chose what to put in the book, we kind of read everything and tried to look at everything from a lot of different angles. Like, Fel, if you want to hop in on this, because Fel helped us out in a big way when it came down to like how we were going to organize our submissions, and credit where credit is due. Like, Fel was a huge part of our selection setup process, and that was super helpful.
Yeah, so I kind of picked some people's brains earlier on other anthologies to see how they did it, and then I kind of took everything they did and kind of just, I guess, condensed it and simplified it. So we pretty much had a spreadsheet where individually every single one of us would read every single pitch, and then we would end up picking our kind of, I guess, like our short list. Like, we cut down, I think, from 130, we picked our top 30 favorites each. And then from then on, we just hopped on a Zoom and had a roundtable discussion and see if there were any kind of like mutual stories that we really liked. And we discussed all the ones that we, that we thought, really struck a chord with us, or if we want to talk about it in any other regard. It was like, I think like a 4 or 5 hour Zoom call we had initially.
Yeah, it was so long.
It was a long call.
But like, we have to look at everything. We have to look at content in terms of what's being represented from a cultural standpoint. And we're trying to also think about representation within the LGBTQIA plus community. Like, we can't have, 19 stories about we have to make sure that we're kind of including, different groups of people within our group, because, we're not trying to exclude anybody in our community. So we tried to be diverse in that aspect, as well as like from a cultural standpoint of being diverse in the content itself, like what types of people and their background and who's being represented, and making sure that it's not all super westernized, I guess is the best way to say it, so that we're pulling from, a lot of our creators they're very worldwide, so we have people from all over. So it's really wonderful to be able to get that sort of, that's, I think, a cool thing about an anthology, is that you can really pull in from everybody's life experiences and the things that they know. So it's not all, not all beige.
Yes, absolutely. And that is absolutely one thing that I've fallen in love with the indie comics community for. Like, with the intent with my show originally was, I want to show off Canadian indie comics creators, and within, like, I don't know, 2 months of doing interviews with people, it was like, that's impossible, because I'm going to meet a writer from Sudbury, but their artist is going to be from Brazil. And then I'm going to meet, like, a creator from Germany, but their artist is from, Vancouver. And it's just like, online indie comics community is just global. There is no way around it. And I've fallen in love with the community for it. And I think it's a hell of a challenge that you guys must have had to go through and actually... Yeah, it's streamlined down. Now, I want to make sure I heard this right. I've heard some numbers thrown around. So we started with the idea of we want 10 stories. We've upped it to 19 because of the level of submissions. I thought earlier I had heard that you guys got 30 submissions. And then I believe, Phil, you said 130.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 130 stories.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
We read all of them. That's like the most important. Like, we left the window open for that long, and we read. If somebody took the time to submit it, we all looked at it.
Wow. That must, collectively, that's got to be like in print, I don't know, a giant omnibus. Like, that would be mega.
I mean,
there was some really good stuff in there, and it really took a lot out of us to have to pick from that, I think, because I think part of what we do is like trying to sort of build people up, right? We want to give people opportunity and lift them up. And I mean, I know personally, I can only really speak for my own. I mean, I was mentally in a state the day that we had to like tell people no. And and I know that it's just the nature of the game. People, you apply to an anthology, you understand that like you're not going to get into everyone, and it's not going to be because you didn't do a good job. It's not going to be because you didn't have a good idea or your portfolio is not good. It's just because it didn't work with how we had to curate the stories that we did pick and how they work together, and tonally and content wise, what fits with what. And when you're trying to curate an anthology, you can't pick multiple stories that all kind of have the same theme. So there might be 3 incredible stories, but they're just thematically too similar. So you have to walk away from 2 of them. And it like, I had to like take a step back from like my digital self for like 24 hours, because I just felt so sad for having to not put every single person in the book. It was very hard.
I mean,
go ahead, sir. No, we were operating off of a premise that everyone's voice is valid. That's our mandate. And so when you have that as the baseline, and you're staring at 130 submissions, I mean, that's how I ended up with nearly 20. We did invite one team prior, but like these are, some of them are just so inherently valid in terms of their necessity of being brought before a wider audience for a variety of reasons, that we just had to include them. There was no way we could exclude this one particular story.
And we also we didn't want the people on the editorial team, like obviously, like I have a story in the book, Brent has a story in the book, like we invited Fel and Justin Richards, who's our other editor, like they also have a story in the book. We didn't want our stories to be taking up a slot from somebody else. So that's another reason why we have so many, is because our slots in the book were not given to us over somebody else. Like we were like, we have to leave more open slots to take submissions. Like we can't have 10 stories and have 4 of them that are us and pick 6. Like that makes no sense. So, you know, our stories did not take away from somebody else being in the book. We just added more. So
well, a lot more.
Important to say, I think. Yeah.
No, I agree. And you know what? I think it's, from a work perspective, I'm sure it's a lot more work. And I've never myself ever created a comic. I've never made or managed an anthology or a magazine. But I imagine budgeting and running space for 10 stories to 19, that's a hell of a jump. Damn.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that was easy. So I did want to touch on the book itself. So at present, at time of recording, there's 24 days to go. After time of editing and release, ideally, I'm hoping there will be 22 days left for people to click the links down below, support the book, get their copies. You have... I think the first thing that jumps out at me, I mean, being a Tula Lote fan, it's the cover, but yeah, the thing that actually really jumped out at me, though, is being someone who talks to a lot of indie creators who do their own Kickstarters for their own comics. I'm used to seeing a desired budget of like $1,000, $2,000, 3 and up is like, ooh, that's spicy. For this, the Canadian pledge goal, I appreciate it's based in America, but the Canadian pledge goal is like $37,342. That's a lot of, like, that's a lot of money. And to my much happiness, and I'm sure your own, with 24 days left, you're already at $21,160. So you're actually more than halfway there in what?
Under a week.
Under a week,
yeah.
six days ish. So congrats. Yeah. I guess my question with that is, why the rather massive target? Was it just you wanted to have a massive print run? What about this project made you want to set that as the target instead of like, oh, like $1,000 we can cover print cost and have our nice little book? Like what made that happen?
Well, we have to pay people, and
we pay page rates.
We pay a really good page rate, because part of our mission is to pay the gays. We give really good paid opportunity to people in our community. So that's the point. So the money is like, this goal is even a very tight budget. Like if we hit the goal, we'll break even.
Wow.
So there's not really money to be made here in terms of like us making something from this. It's really just, we're making this project to create really good paid opportunities for our creators. That's like the point of it. So the budget is high because that's how much it costs. Like it truly is like, and the budget is really, really, it's not padded, and I'm, terrified of it as the sad budget elf. I stare at my spreadsheets a lot and just kind of sigh and cry a little bit, like I have my spreadsheets to dry my tears. But it's really just to pay people. Like that's how much it costs, and our first stretch goal is to pay them more. Like,
love it. One thing then, for the folks out there at home who maybe, because again, I've talked to a lot of people about a lot of Kickstarters. Some folks, might be their first time hearing about a Kickstarter. Basically, so what you're doing is you're getting all this money, the $37.4 Canadian $1,000, which is a good chunk of change. But the aim of that money is to be able to take basically all the 19 submissions, and however you're going to divvy it up. If it's, I think, Michelle or Brent, you mentioned a page rate. So if someone's got 4 pages in there, you're going to pay them X number of dollars per page for your anthology, correct?
For that team, yeah.
For that team, right.
Yes.
So basically, what you're doing is what an artist, or not an artist, I guess a writer would do. Say if I wrote a comic and I went out and I wanted to hire an artist and say, hey, I've got these pages, I need you to draw them. You're basically paying them their page rate. And not only are you paying them a page rate, you're paying them, from the sounds of it, a fairly good one. And looking at the budget, it certainly seems that way. So kudos. And just, I wanted to state that to make sure people understood what went into that. Because
our first stretch goal is always to pay them more. Nice. As well. It's worth noting.
So our first stretch goal is to up that page rate. Yeah. Go ahead, Phil.
Oh, no, I was just going to mention that I think even also with inflation, everything, printing prices, shipping prices, all of that has gone up a lot. Yeah. So it kind of might balloon the budget a little bit, but it's kind of the current reality we're all living in.
Welcome to the world, yeah.
Yeah.
Then you know what
and we're pretty transparent about our budgets. So like if anybody ever has questions, like I'm like an open book. I'll talk about my budget for days and days because I know how it makes sense. I'm fine with it. So there's no like invasive question in terms of like the budget is concerned. So very open about it.
Fair, yeah. And I mean, on the site, again, I'll have something come up for the interview so folks can see it. But you do have like a breakdown. You're showing what stuff is going into, and that's where the cost comes from. I think that the next important thing that I want to cover, because we've talked quite a fair bit about the details of the book, what people can expect from it, the way it's being managed, which is mind-boggling to me, and I'm sure very stressful. So, Michelle, thank you for doing your spreadsheets. Important part. We want to get people to get the book. We want to get people to enjoy the book. How can they get this book? I'll open it to anyone.
What do you mean? Just generally the backing once it's fulfilled?
Well, what are the different tiers levels?
The tiers.
Oh, okay. Well, there's the digital tier, which I believe starts at $18, and then there's the physical tier, which is the book and the digital, which is just an additional $10 for $28 total. There is the Sword and Shield tier, which is $40, which is, I believe, the PDF and the book, and our print pack, which includes this is something worth noting. The prints, we tried to like not go extra on this one. We had to give ourselves a little bit of allowance for extra. These are comic-sized prints, so the gimmick is that these are like alt covers. Yeah, they're literally the size of a U.S. standard comic book, but they're prints, and they'll be drawn up to look like an alternate cover a little bit. They'll have like the logo on it. And one of them's by Elisa Romboli, who did the cover of Color of Always, and the other one's by Natasha Alertici. Is that the correct pronunciation? Let me make sure I get that right. But a Heathen fame from Vault. What? Oh, no. Heathen Natasha. We'll just say Heathen Natasha.
Heathen.
Okay.
But yeah, no, a print from her, and I believe a print version of the cover, of course, by Tula. And then you go up from there to the Morning Star, which is $60, and then it comes with enamel pins from Brent Schmidt, and then a sticker pack, alternate cover pack, everything going down from there. And Brett's stickers, Schmidt is a genius.
I love that guy.
Just amazing. And so these stickers are going to be just killer. And that pin's going to be like the ampersand composed of like the ball and chain.
It's from our logo, from the logo.
Yeah.
So it's a really cute pin. I'm excited for it.
And then a flail, correct?
Flail. Yeah, it's kind of a flail.
Yeah,
it's a flail,
yeah.
I'm trying to I'm unpacking the tiers in real time, so make it so if I stumble a little bit.
You're doing really good.
There's a $90 tier, and this is the really kicker one. There's only 25 of these, and we're down to 10.
Yeah, the Armory is what it's called.
Yeah, the Armory. That's the whole kitchen sink. It's got everything I just talked about, plus a limited edition Glacis cover of like high resolution print of the Tula Lotte cover, which I believe can also be done later, and I'll get to that one. There's a retailer variant, and then there's 2 commission tiers. One of them's taken, one of them's not. Angela Wu for $500, and then there's add-ons. You can get all the prints, the pins, the stickers. You can all get them all as add-ons. In addition to, and I don't know how many we have left, but you can buy that Tula Lotte cover in an exclusive black and white that Tula gave to us, and I think we're only selling 10 of them.
Yeah,
and that's an add-on too.
It's not gonna let me nicely hop in, but yes, it is all there.
Yeah.
Great job at breaking that down, by the way. I'm following it on the screen, but I'm like,
yeah, I was following along too.
yeah, he's really nailing them. Nice. What I love, and I've only seen it done recently, so I'm wondering if maybe Kickstarter changed up their system, is the add-ons coming on. So like as people can tell, I'm a huge fan of print media. Digital hurts my eyes, so print it is. So I love, for me, that I can get a print copy, and then if I wanted to go get the add-on, I can get the enamel pin of the flail, which looks super cool. And for some reason my brain hadn't put together that it was an ampersand for your logo. I think that's fantastic. Regarding timelines, because this is always it's a question that with Kickstarters it scares people, that they're like, I don't want to give my money to something I don't know when it's coming. What are your rough timelines? I appreciate printing as a whole thing in and of itself to handle. From 24 days from now, when this thing goes super successful and awesome, and you get the funds, what's sort of the timeline for art to be completed, everything submitted, printed, shipped, and whatever else I'm sure I'm forgetting or not realizing is happening?
We expect to have finished pages by mid-December, and then hope to turn it around to the printer by mid-January.
Perfect.
And then it all kind of depends on where we're at, as a society by mid-January of 2023. I really can't say how long it'll take. I always just kind of assume about a month, 1 to 2 months to get printed copies. I mean, really, it depends on, there's variables obviously with the print file. I mean, with Color of Always, we had a lot of back and forth with the printer about making the print file correct for printing, for a multitude of reasons, which I will not be discussing.
It's a pain in the butt.
It was a journey. Yeah.
We will be using a different printer this time around. We haven't 100% chosen yet, but we're not printing with the same people we printed Color of Always with. I do expect it to go a little more smoothly this time around. Nice. You live and you learn. I think it was definitely a learning experience. But so right now we're expecting to ship the books in like the spring of 2023. So hopefully March-ish.
Very nice.
So fingers crossed.
That's that's perfect, because one of the things that just talking with like friends, random people I meet in comic shops, that they hear what I do, and they hear that I do a lot of this with people who do Kickstarters. They're always like, oh my god, I'm so worried that I'll never get my book. And I'm like, don't worry about it. Me personally, I've backed like, I don't know, 24 projects at this point. I have yet to receive 3 of them that have gone through, but I still get the update. I still get the, hey, just to let you know, we're now in print. I've got some person in Germany who's made a book. So I love asking the question of, what's your timeline? Because people can now go, okay, cool, I can spend however much money you really want. If you want to get a commission, go for it. I think that's amazing. And I can expect to get it printed, done March-ish.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And yeah, printing, that's a whole thing. Yeah.
We try to be just really transparent about it. Like you said, even with Color of Always, we were a little behind timeline, but we were really open about it. And we sent a lot of backer updates, and we just kept talking to people and telling them where we were at. And I think people are really understanding if you keep them in the loop. So
we also partnered with a fulfillment vendor that I believe is exemplary for the field. And we got so many compliments from people when their stuff finally came in. Like like people, especially like in international recipients, like it arrived in the exact same condition it was packaged in.
Nice.
Like there was no dent, there were no dents, there's no dings. They were in really nice containers, and which I think is a common lament even among timely books and fulfillment. So we made a note of doing that.
Big shout out to White Squirrel. They're called White Squirrel. They ship out of Washington State, and big ups to Ashley and Andrea at White Squirrel for going. I probably have like 300 emails with them. Like they're so wonderful. We've been back and forth for a while now, and I can't say enough amazing things about how their partnership and fulfillment really helped us get these books to our backers. And probably will discuss going that route with them again for the second book, because it's really difficult. I mean, it seems like we're this big operation, but it's just, what you see before you is who's in charge of everything. And we all have day jobs and other life responsibilities and can't really ship 700 packages. So
Yep. And I don't think White Squirrel gets enough credit generally, even outside the scope of art, because there's a fulfillment for several Kickstarters, not many. I think their real bread and butter is fulfillment of storefronts. But to kind of contextualize how they're these quiet champions, they are the storefront maintainer of inventory, not only for the Dodsons, but also for Jen Bartel.
Oh.
So if you're ordering something from Terry and Rachel Dodson or the Jen Bartel store, that's a White Squirrel outfit. But they also do a lot of incidental fulfillment involving Kickstarters like this. And I just can't speak more highly of them.
Yeah, they were really wonderful.
That's so cool. I
love like support small business, like
yeah.
I'm happy to provide more opportunity for people to get paid to do something that we need them to do. So it's like hire people to do stuff that you need, like pay people, me yelling into the void.
I think there's a percentage of queer folks on staff as well. So we've got to pay within the family too, if you can. So
love it.
I didn't send a survey or anything, so I don't know for sure, but
yeah, we're just guessing.
Then you know what, next question, specifically for Fel. I'll start with you, Fel. We've talked a lot about like the fulfillment and how to run the Kickstarter and what's going on, and it's very cool to hear about. I love this kind of stuff, and I find a lot of people are interested in it. But Fel, you're a writer, you're an artist, you're a Ringo nominated creator, which is no small thing. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Ringo nominated.
Yeah. When it comes to this project in the work that you've done with Brent, because you sort of mentioned earlier that, or Brent rather mentioned earlier that you gave them the opportunity to do stuff like this. How did you come into contact with Brent and Michelle, and what about this project? What was the moment for this project where you were like, I'm doing this? What was that moment for you?
So I met Brent, I want to say like, I don't even, like early 2020, late 2019 maybe.
Late 2019, yeah.
Yeah, Brent's like a universal friend. They love to befriend people, and I think I just got adopted in the friendship department by them. I'm very introverted. So yeah. But honestly, we had a lot in common. We both liked Carol. Sorry, Michelle.
Sorry, Michelle.
Yeah, we both like queer stuff, both like comic books, and we just kind of hit it off. We collaborated on our first comic. It was called Sojourner. You were for Big Hype, which is an anthology run by our friend Doug Wood, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Brent's an incredible writer, and then Brent introduced me to Michelle sometime down the line, and yeah, that's how we all kind of met. And honestly, like I love sword ladies, so when they said we're gonna make a sword lady anthology, I didn't want to say it out loud, but it was like, I have to be a part of this. Like, you have to let me be a part of this. I will cry if I'm not. Yeah, but thankfully they were nice, and they were like, sure, you can be a part, and I was very happy.
Awesome.
I think it's really important actually to say that we kind of would have begged Fel to do a story in this book.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really like a may I please be in your book. It was like we literally cannot do this book if you do not do a story in it. So just credit where credit is due, I think. That
I don't think we could look ourselves in the mirror.
In the book.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that Spider-Man meme where it's like,
yeah,
yeah.
100%.
Oh yeah. Okay. And then for Brent and Michelle, because Michelle, you have a story in it. Brent, do you have a story as well in it?
Yeah.
I guess same sort of question. When was the moment where you were like, yes, we're doing this, we're in, let's do it? But I guess for the both of you, I'd like to also ask, did that come from a perspective of, I want to tell this specific story and get it out there? Or was it like, I want to make an anthology and here's my story for it? Like, what was your... Because I appreciate there was a book that preceded this that ended up with this becoming a thing. Yeah. So what's sort of the story behind that and your connection, both of your connections to it?
Brent, you want to go first?
Well, yeah. Well, first and foremost, Color of Always was based on a poem that I wrote. The first 2 pages of Color of Always is an adaptation of that poem as a thematic introduction to telling everybody this is going to be an LGBTQ book about love. And I had the pleasure of having Elisa Rimboli draw it, but that book wouldn't have happened until if Michelle wasn't here. Like, Michelle came in and was like, "You're a hot mess. This is a great idea. Please let me help you actually make this not a hot mess." And I go, okay. And that's basically why the book exists. That's the Cliff Notes version. And then book 2, it's true. We have a plan. Okay, let's just do what we did, except not be so freaking gay and extra about it, and try to tighten up the budget, and and so we tried. The teams thing is where we got caught up this time. It's not the tchotchkes. Last time it was tchotchkes. This time it's teams, but that's okay. But we're talking about what we're going to be about. Sword ladies, boom. Okay, sword ladies, great. And then I think it actually became what it is now when we were devising the title, because one of us said Sharp Wit and the other one of us said the Company of Women, and we were just like, let's put them both together, and boom, here's Sharp Wit and the Company of Women.
I had probably had a few. It was probably 2 a.m. I don't know. I had an edible gummy, and I'm like, woo, women, weapons, somebody stab me, crying, like typical me at 2 a.m.
I mean, you know what? You're feeling good. Ideas are flowing, and you've come up with a hell of a title. So it worked.
And we call it SWAT Cow, which is hysterical. So just keep it moving on SWAT Cow, I think. But Brent, do you want to talk about where your story came from for the book?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to just start on that? Or
I want to go first because I want you to indulge on talking about your story, because I fucking love your story so much. Okay, my story, I actually was struggling to think of something at first, and then it kind of came to me. I have this thing about, I enjoy writing stories with no dialogue.
Okay.
I think very cinematically in my storytelling, and I really enjoy just describing the city and letting the artist have at it. And the artist of record for both books is Rachel Disler, who I'm really excited to see what she comes up with for this one. But the core thematic is basically a noble girl at a jousting competition. Her dad's losing it. He's the noble lord, and they're sitting next to her, and the mom's there, and they're in the high seats looking over the jousting, and she's just enamored with the guy's jousting and the violence of it. And she wants to do it herself. She wants to learn. And it's like, that's just not what a noble girl does. And, it's a little kind of Rocky montage-y, I guess.
Okay.
And it reaches a certain apex conclusion that I think is kind of satisfying. I won't get into it more than that, but it's called Invictus, kind of named a little bit after the poem and the sentiment of the poem. But it resonated with me in terms of what I was trying to convey for the book. And that's kind of where I came to. I don't want to spoil too much because, again, it's no dialogue, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. But Michelle's story is freaking fantastic. So
my story is dialogue, for one.
Yeah.
I kind of came up with the idea for my story. I wrote it for Tench, who's my artist from Color of Always. and she is my artist again for this book. And just from getting to know her and knowing the types of things that she likes to draw and her interests, I was like, vampires. Sure, let's do it. And I, wanted to lean into the sharp wit end of the spectrum of stories. And I love a good, dad joke, dry humor kind of dialogue. And I also really love when things are about people just being friends. And it's not about romance. It's about loving somebody because they're your friend. And I think there's not like a ton of platonic love being portrayed in popular media anywhere.
Agreed.
So I kind of wanted to write something about some friends just having a time. So it does have, was able to, inject a little bit of heart into it, but like, it's kind of sassy and they're really fun. And I kind of am obsessed with the characters like a lot. And I have so many ideas of like what to do with them, hoping to write more about them in the future. Even like, it's such a joy to work with. I love Tench so much. She's become a really good friend to me, and working with her throughout Color of Always, I think we were both, we both have had interesting times in our lives. I'm going to kind of leave it at that. She's, a private person, and I'm kind of a private person. So I'm not really going to delve into specificity here, but I think just like making a comic while everything else is kind of happening around you, you kind of just grow camaraderie with people when you're creating something, while other stuff is kind of, you're the meme of the explosion behind you while you're like, hey man, what's up? So I kind of wanted to write a script that would be really fun for both of us. And I had fun writing the dialogue. And so far, like, she has said that she's really enjoyed the character design and enjoyed working on that page. And I'm really excited for the whole thing to be done. It's going to be really funny. I'm excited for everyone to have a laugh and just be a little bit lighter, I think, after reading it. So excited for that.
Awesome. I mean, the moment you mentioned vampires with the title Iron Deficiency, I was like, oh, that's quite funny.
It's funny, right? But also, that's clever,
yeah.
swords. Like iron because of like weapons also.
Yeah.
So it's like funny multiple times.
No,
I think I'm funny. I think I'm kind of a genius. So it's fine.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's well done.
A meaning within a meaning.
Yeah.
Now we're really excited that Fell has a story too, because
oh my god, look at Fell's page. Scroll to it right now. Stop what you're doing and look at this page. Like, please. I can't. Put it on the screen. Put it in the notes.
Oh, it will be up. Don't you worry.
Okay.
Fell, tell us a little bit about Starcrossed.
Yeah, so the comic is called Starcrossed, which, probably leaves a lot to guess about what it's about. It's about star-crossed lovers. I pitched it as just pretty much Romeo and Juliet, but because I have a habit of killing off all my characters, I was like, this time they're not gonna die. I'm gonna get out of my comfort zone and make a Romeo and Juliet where they live. But yeah, it's pretty much about we got these two warriors from different factions, and they fall in love. And obviously people are upset about it, so things are gonna go down. But the way that I wanted to visually draw the story is that I wanted to kind of have the star-crossed be more than just kind of a literary metaphor, and just have it as like a visual metaphor on the thing. So which the story is told in constellations, and the panels are all within the little capes of the characters in the constellations.
Wow.
Yeah, and once I draw a page, the other pages hopefully will make a lot more sense about how the story is going to look visually.
I'm very excited for that then. Well, not then, but I mean, just from the preview pages here, because from your previous work, I know you to be an extremely visual storyteller. Um, Commander Rao itself, just it's the moment you pick it up, it's just go 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 go, and it just rips you along with it. And yeah, if you're getting creative with how you're paneling and everything like that, I can't wait to see more. That's just exciting.
I'm so excited for Fell's story.
Oh,
Can't even deal.
Absolutely. As I was saying, basically, from the preview page where we could see on the Kickstarter there, where we can see the, I don't know if it's the wolf or the lion, but the more orange themed people in
Yes.
the one character's cape, and then the blue themed people in the other. If the whole book's going to carry on that way, I'm extremely interested to see what you're going to do with paneling. I'm a big fan of taking like a comic, just happen to have Coda, and like taking what could be conventional paneling and then just playing with it. Coda here doesn't do like a fantastic job of being terribly interesting in the paneling. But like from that, very interested.
Thank you.
Given your I kind of want to ask, given your previous work and everything you've worked on, and now this, what made you want to push the envelope when it comes to paneling and do things like have the capes show the story and their movement, which will be extremely fluid, I imagine, contain that? Like, was that just like, screw it, I want to artistically challenge myself, or what inspired that?
Maybe just because I'm a very extra person and I like to be extra. I'm gay and I'm extra. But honestly, like one of the first comics I ever picked up was Batwoman Elegy, and by J.H. Williams. And J.H. Williams has literally the greatest comic book layouts on the planet. They are mesmerizing, they are abstract, they are beautiful. And I literally, like, Batwoman Elegy was the comic that got me into comics. So honestly, my entire artistic career was like, I want to be like that. That's how I want to draw. That is, I want to, be like a J.H. Williams light almost. But
Absolutely.
And another part of it, I guess, is just I come from kind of a poetry background when it comes to writing. And when doing that, you have to condense a lot of story and information into very few words. Like here, we only have like 6 pages. So it's like, how can I fit a whole story in 6 pages? And the comic itself is actually a poetry comic. So the words are going to be poetry. And I guess kind of visually, I want it to represent that as well and just be a little more poetic with it.
Keep doing what you're doing, please. Like, as long as you can. From our last interview, which, God, that happened a long time ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, oh my God, I mean, that's a while. Very much so, the way that you've told stories is, well, like I sort of explained earlier, Commander Rao grabs you and just, it's like, let's go on this crazy adventure and see the wrath of Rao. We also discussed sort of your work with prose and how you've explored sort of literary worlds. And that just sounds cool, like visually as well as, I don't know what the word for it would be, but in writing, exploring poetry in that format. In any way that it happens, however the 6 pages you mentioned turn out, it definitely sounds like you're attempting to push the border of what comics are capable of, which I love. Anytime you can get creative in that way, go for it. So I'm excited.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. For our interview today, we've basically hit an hour. I guess I'll ask my last 2 questions, but I do want to ask, is there anything else any of you want to cover?
I don't think so. I think we've talked about the campaign, and I mean,
That's good.
back the book, please. I mean, like everyone out there, please
Yeah.
pay the gays.
Word of mouth is huge too. So back and share.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Hopefully, we're gonna have some cool contests next week.
Yep.
In the wake of New York Comic Con, for some stuff I'm gonna pick up at the convention. So hopefully, you said this will be up in a few days, so I'll be walking around the Javits Center halls, hopefully getting some cool stuff to do some fun giveaways. So just keep an eye on Twitter for that kind of thing.
Hell yeah, that sounds awesome. Then you know what? Yeah, my last two questions, always the same, always simple, I hope. We'll go counterclockwise. So orientation's changed a bit, but it'll be Michelle, Brent, and then Fel. Currently, other than a whole bunch of submissions, what are you reading?
Oh God. Hang on, I have it right here.
Oh, perfect.
I just read this, The Least We Can Do, by...
Are y'all showing your books? Give me a second.
Yes. Everybody should read this book. This is the book that everybody should read.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's great.
It's so good. I can't wait to read more. Read that book.
Okay.
And everybody should read it.
What's, without spoilers, what's sort of the idea of it?
Oh, God. It's difficult to sort of describe the idea after like one single issue. I just had some good feel. I really like the characters so far. They're really fun. I really relate to the main character. She's kind of fun. She reminded me a little bit of Fel. I was like messaging Fel after I read it. I was like, yo, did you read this yet? Because there's one part that really reminded me of you. And there's a lot of hot ladies in it. I like big buff women. So I'm like, give me more of this, please. So I'm really really excited to like read more and see where it goes. I guess we're all reading the same thing. Sorry for that, guys.
If I was to give you like,
it was
like if The Last Postman combined with Children of Men is the kind of the pitch. That's the pitch. Kind of the like aesthetic pitch.
Yeah. Like a post-apocalyptic fantasy, and there's magic.
Fair. And that's
great. It's so good.
It's The Least We Could Do, correct?
Yeah, The Least We Could Do. It's with Image. It's beautiful. I'm obsessed with it. And we have some personal ties to this because Elisa Raboli was our cover artist on Color of Always. She did a print for Swatcow. Incredible human being. We're really excited to always support what she does in her career, but also like it's really good. And even if I didn't have that personal connection, I would still read this book. It's so good. So
awesome. I think it is absolutely hilarious that all three of you pulled that book out.
It's so good. I don't know what you want from me.
That's really good. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, if it's good, it's good. So folks out there in YouTube land, go read.
Buy the book.
It's The Least We Could Do.
The least we can do is recommend this book for you because your life will be better once you read it. Thank you.
Amazing.
Yep.
Then you know what? My last question, I'll leave it for any or all of you to answer. What do you want the folks out there in YouTube land to know?
Just in general, or like about us, or
literally, I leave that question open. Some people shout out their stuff. Some people come out with some seriously heartfelt stuff that just makes me like irk up inside a little bit, and I'm like, oh my god. Whatever you want folks to know, go for it. We did counterclockwise. Brent, go for it.
Always make a note of reading what they tell you shouldn't be reading.
Oh, damn! I like that. All right, Michelle, you want to add on?
if someone tells you not to read Swatcow, you should probably read it.
Yes.
Just got to put that last minute plug in.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess just some parting thoughts on Swatcow is it's just such a wonderful collection of people. People in this book are just amazing people. And I think they all deserve to have this book printed so that they can all be in a book together. Like, it's such a wild collection of incredible stories, and I think it will enrich the lives of everyone that reads it and the lives of the people in the book itself. I think being a part of an anthology is a beautiful thing for the people in it as well as the people reading it, because you get to kind of be a member of like a weird little family. And I'm personally, I pinch myself thinking about the fact that I'm making a book with the people that are in this book. And to me, it feels so like out of the realm of possibility that I would be working on a book with the Ringo nominated Fellhound, Commander Rao.
It's a lot to work with you guys.
I mean, like, the people in this book are so talented, and whether it's a name you've heard or a name that you've never heard before, if you haven't heard it before, you're going to keep hearing those names. Like, get this book, because you're going to be able to be like, oh yeah, I bought their book, their first anthology, when they're like winning Eisners and stuff. So I feel like buy this book for the names you know, but also buy it for the names that you don't, because they're names that you'll need to know. So
yeah, you'll be hearing them again.
I love it. Beautiful. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Brent.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phil. I absolutely. I want to say thank you, all three of you, so much for taking the time to come on, talk about your Kickstarter, the amazing work you're doing on your anthology, which is, once again, the title, folks?
Sharp Wit and the Company of Women.
Awesome. Folks, links down below. Go check them all out. There'll be social media links, the Kickstarter campaign. Back it. It's 6 days in. It's more than half done. Get it all the way. Get stretch goals. Pay the gays a little bit more, which is awesome.
Pay the gays.
And let's see what else we can get out of this. And yeah, folks, thanks so much for coming on. You were an absolute blast.
Thank you for having us. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day. Yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns. Can't find issue 2? Yeah. Collector problems, cliffhangers, mysteries. You need answers. When did Batman become Green Lantern? I get it. True believer, not lying. Always up for an awesome summer crossover.